Top Med Talk.
Hello and welcome back to Top Med Talk here at Anesthesiology 2025. I'm Desiree, Chapell, your host, and we're in San Antonio for the American Society of Anesthesiologists annual meeting. It is with great pleasure that I get to introduce the next guest. Every year at the ASA, I get to catch up with longtime friends and colleagues over the years, but it's always such a pleasure to catch up with my colleagues at NorthStar Anesthesia. So many of our listeners know that in addition to being co-editor-in-chief and host here, I am also Vice President of Clinical Quality, very proudly for NorthStar Anesthesia. And I have with me my colleagues from there. So first of all, I'm going to work down the couch. So no, in no particular order of our hierarchy or anything. But we have Dr. Josh Lumley, who is my partner in crime as the Chief Quality Officer.
Desiree, so good to see you. And thank you again for having us back to speak with you. Yeah, I'm Josh Lumley. I'm an anesthesiologist from Columbus, Ohio, and I'm NorthStar's Chief Quality Officer. And I am also Desiree's work partner in crime.
The wingman, they say.
Exactly.
All right, well, I may get in trouble for this later for not starting first, but Adam Spiegel is our fearless leader, our Chief Executive Officer. Adam, thanks again for coming back.
Thanks for having me, Desiree. And obviously starting with you and ending with me is right kind of a hierarchy in terms of who gets to tell people what to do. So
That's true. For our listeners, Adam, why don't you tell us just a little bit more about yourself?
sure, I am not an anesthesiologist. Been CEO of NorthStar for about 8 years. Prior to that, spent about 25 years, various healthcare roles, but have been really excited to spend the last 8 in the anesthesia business.
That's great. Well, we're going to hear more from Adam and kind of giving us a high-level overview of where we are right now. One thing we've been very excited at NorthStar this year is that we have Dr. Romeo Kaddoum has joined us as our Chief Medical Officer, taking over the reins for Dr. Jim Roberts, who we've spoken to several times here on Top Med Talk. Romeo, welcome to this leadership position. I can't think of anybody else who'd be as good as you. So, Romeo, tell us more about yourself.
Romeo Kaddoum, Chief Medical Officer at NorthStar Anesthesia, and I've been with the company for,
A while.
2015 now.
Yeah.
And I'm from Detroit, based out of Detroit. I live kind of 20 minutes north of Detroit, but I also travel with the company and help out with startups and kind of the new accounts for the main part.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll come back to you because, Romeo, I do want to come back to your story and your journey of making it to Chief Medical Officer and where you've been within the company. So over the last couple of days, we've had lots of conversations about workforce, about like the economic impact of recent regulations, things like that. But Adam, you have a really interesting sense of where the market is. I mean, NorthStar is a large national anesthesia management company. We have over 200 sites across the U.S. From your perspective, where do you feel like we are right now? I feel like we kind of do this update every year, but I feel like things are kind of changing.
Yeah, it's an interesting point right now in terms of this weird combination of the workforce issues are getting better. So I think people are feeling like, look, yeah, I may not be fully staffed, but if I need locums, I can hire locums. Hospital finances, while there's a lot of concerns longer term, they've actually been pretty good over the last few years. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of hospitals who 3 or 4 years ago were like, look, whatever my anesthesia team needs is fine because I don't want to risk. I think you're seeing a lot of them now say, you know what, the anesthesia team's pretty well staffed now. Why don't I just do it? Because I don't really need this outsourced anesthesia company anymore, and I'm going to insource it myself. And I think it's not everybody, but there's enough people out there that feel like worst case scenario, I could just spend more money. I can hire in locums, and I'm not going to jeopardize surgeries. And that's a big change. And I think as a result, you're seeing a lot more turnover of anesthesia groups than you certainly have over the last 5 years. What I think a lot of hospitals are missing out on is the fact that there's actually a significant amount of value that hospitals get from outsourced anesthesia services. If you look at revenue cycle, for an example, hospitals are not particularly strong at collections. And for a hospital that looks at, say, an orthopedic surgery, the facility fee is about $45,000 on that orthopedic surgery. Think a total knee replacement. The physician fee is about $25,000. The anesthesia revenue from that procedure is about $800. So if you're a hospital and your job is to collect as much of that $45,000, $25,000, and $800 I'm going to get for that procedure, how much time are you going to spend on the $800?
Yeah.
Right.
I got to figure out, if I'm going to negotiate with payers, am I going to spend a lot of time negotiating whether I get $45,000 or $50,000 for that procedure, or am I going to spend time on, am I going to get $800 or $900?
Yeah.
They're going to put all their emphasis there. And as a result, when you look at revenue cycle, you find that hospitals and health systems end up losing about 15 to 20% of revenue relative to outsourcing groups. So from the get-go, you're going to be making 15%, or it's going to cost you 15% more just because you can't offset the cost with revenue. On the cost side, hospitals aren't great at using their resources efficiently. And they know this when they acquire physician groups. So yeah, I know my orthopedic group that I acquire is probably going to do 90% of the cases that they did prior to that, but I get 100% of those cases at my hospital as opposed to before I may have gotten 50% of my cases. So that's a trade-off I'm willing to do. If my anesthesia group is going to be operating at 85% of what I was doing before, well, that's just pure cost because I don't get any benefit of incremental surgical cases. So as a result, you see that hospitals are spending 15, 20% more for anesthesia than, again, a outsourced group. The reason why hospitals outsourced in the first place was because outsourced groups do things better and cheaper. That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I think what you're finding is a lot of hospitals that have done the hard course of insourcing are now calling a lot of groups like us and saying, this hasn't worked out like we thought. Maybe we should outsource again. So I think right now, while there is this increased notion that hospitals have the financial wherewithal to bring anesthesia in-house, provided that anesthesia providers are continuing to add value, paying 30% more to bring anesthesia in-house is not a great decision for most hospitals. And I think as a result, you're going to see this come back, but it certainly is an issue right now. And I think it's creating a lot of uncertainty for a lot of groups around the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, you work in
yeah.
business development a lot. You hear a lot of these conversations. What is your
I mean, it is 100% exactly what Adam's describing. And then there is like the sort of soft intangible that exists beyond that, which is you've got to hire those people. We score extraordinarily high on our engagement surveys around career pathing. So are you providing opportunities for those clinicians when they join their team? It's not just, I can bring them in. It's once they're here, are they engaged? Are they continuing to grow their career? Are they going to be with you 2, 5, 10 years down the road? If you're not providing those people opportunities to grow from a leadership standpoint, quality standpoint, clinical skill set standpoint, they're going to leave and they're going to go to the next opportunity. And you're going to constantly be in this struggle of maintaining a fully staffed bench.
Right.
And then I would just say the last part is then there's just managing people, which is incredibly difficult, an area that Romeo is very passionate about and does an extraordinarily good job. If you don't have a person that's designated to that team to grow them, to sort of run interference on the challenges of running a department, there's always going to be friction there. And that's another thing that I just don't think insourced departments really appreciate is the ongoing maintenance of a department of anesthesia.
Let's just talk about investment, the investment into people as well. It's not, the incentive isn't as much there, and understanding the culture. I mean, that's one thing I think we do really, really well is establishing culture for our teams, Romeo.
No, certainly. I was going to start from where Josh ended eventually is how does a hospital, same group of folks, managing 15, 17 service lines and departments? I mean, we learn so much as an organization who does anesthesia and anesthesia only. And we've evolved and we've learned from the market, and the market shifts all the time. And there are payers, issues, and there are labor cost issues, so I can't imagine a hospital being able to do this on the anesthesia side and the surgery side and the radiology side and the ED side and be successful at all of those. So that's why it's not like if the hospital is only focused on anesthesia, maybe if they hire the right people, they can do it, but it's impossible. They don't run lean team. They can't recruit the way we recruit. We have the team dedicated to recruiting only. They don't invest as much as we do in their anesthesia engagement. And they don't really, the retention has been proven to be way lower than our retention from a retaining team perspective. And then comes the billing again. We police our folks like, hey, if you omit spinal decompression with instrumentation, that one word, that you don't put on the anesthesia chart, you already lost few units, base units. Multiply this by thousands of spine cases you do. And that's one example, knee scope or whatever.
Yeah, clinical
That's
documentation.
a lot of money left at the table. I know hospitals don't go down this rabbit hole with their docs and CRNAs, but we do.
Exactly. And the only other thing I would just say is managing a department is managing resources efficiently. Hypothetical situation, you got 10 physicians. You really need to have 2 physicians on PTO every week if they have 10 weeks of PTO. I mean, you can't give more than that. And, 6 weeks from now, we're going to be looking at Thanksgiving. And if you had a random group of 10 anesthesiologists that say, you know what? Nobody's policing our PTO, so let's all 8 of us take PTO, and we're going to leave 2 others, and we're going to make the hospital find us 8 locums to backstaff us so I can take Thanksgiving off. If I don't have somebody who's looking at how the department allocates those resources with a magnifying glass, people are going to get taken advantage of, because it's an opportunity that's there. And so, it's really a lot of dedicated attention and focus that has to go to running a department.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it's going back to our teams. And I think all of us have embraced this. It's our focus and investment on leadership. That's really important, not just for personal growth, but also for professional growth and leaning into our teams to bring up people who we identify as strong leaders. Can you tell me a little bit more about what NorthStar is doing?
Yeah, so we realized early on that if you actually want to inflect the performance of an individual team, Romeo, Josh, and I could do lots of podcasts, but it's not actually going to have an impact on the day-to-day of what's happening. And really what it comes down to is strong medical directors and strong chief CRNAs. And if you've got that at a facility, honestly, me, Romeo, Josh could be relatively incompetent.
It doesn't matter.
Right? So the big thing was really around how do we make sure that we've got best-in-class people at those roles? One is, you got to be very thoughtful about hiring. But, even more importantly, it's that how do you give those leaders, new leaders, the skill sets they need to be successful? How do you support them with the technology and the administrative support so that, hey, they're all clinicians as well. They've got to be able to spend the time that they need to on things that are highest order issues. So you have to surround them with a good administrative group, but you also have to train them in the skills that they need to be successful. So I think we've invested a lot of time and energy on regular meetings, whether it's bringing all of our leaders in once a year for programming through our clinical leadership council, whether it's providing opportunities for people through our QA/QI committee. We actually have our advanced leadership training courses as well. We look for ways that we can continue to elevate our leaders. And we also have to be very good about if somebody's not doing a good job, we either have to upskill them or move them out and find somebody new. So I think we spend a lot of time and energy evaluating each of our leaders on an annual basis and really looking for people who, are doing great that we need to be promoting and those that are struggling that we either need to get better or we need to move on. And I think one of the things that we've learned is that nothing creates a worse culture faster than a poor leader that nobody does anything with. And I think too often people find, especially in healthcare, that there's just this lack of interest in changing out leaders that are not performing well. And that's what really drives down. It's not just that somebody's doing a bad job at one point in time, it's that nobody cares. Yeah. And as a result, it sort of festers and people say, well, if they don't care about that leader, they don't care about me, and I'm going to go find a different place to work.
And I think if you don't hold people accountable, then you're like, well, that doesn't feel good to anybody, because if you let that behavior go, what else is going to happen?
Exactly.
And I think I just want to add, I think what NorthStar does best is also picking up and identifying younger leaders early on in their career, which is something that really we've had success across our footprint. I was positively surprised when we promote someone 2 years out of residency or 3 years out of residency into a medical director position. And we're thinking, they're new, but we were positively surprised. Those folks, they have a lot of potentials, and obviously they're green. And we are, as Adam said, we're here to coach them up, to support them, to learn, provide them with skill sets, but they would really do a great job and they turn the culture around in their places. It's just something that usually hospitals or other companies maybe don't really, again, there's high threshold to replace those leaders who became complacent at some point.
Yep.
But we've done a great job over the past few years, at least in that arena.
Yeah.
Agree.
Josh, I feel like we get into this space a lot and really trying to provide opportunities for different clinicians because not everybody wants to work in operations. So there's this quality pathway towards leadership, which I'm always do have to say I'm pretty proud of. A lot of places just don't do that. But we also focus on education for our teams and doing things kind of above and beyond.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to the engagement survey of people saying, I started my career here. I would love to see it progress and grow throughout my career. And that may be clinical operations, that may be quality, that may, I don't want to say just be, that may just be I started my career here not knowing how to do this skill and anesthesia has advanced. And I would like to get to a point now where I can intervene at a moment's notice on any clinical situation that I was not otherwise prepared for. So whether that's regional blocks, whether that is employing the best technology for a clinician to be able to utilize to take better care of their patients, to get better replicable outcomes, helping to facilitate cases that previously were inpatient that are now outpatient that require multimodal analgesia and really perioperative optimization, all sorts of things that we want to provide to clinicians to say, wow, you are really advancing your career. You're getting better in the practice of anesthesia.
That's great. As we're wrapping up here today, I know one of the things that we talk a lot about that's really important to clinicians and to our leaders is not losing focus on why we're there and taking care of our patients. And so we talk a lot about maintaining clinical practice for our leaders. So Romeo, I know this is something that you've been really passionate about and pushing since you've kind of taken over the lead. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we start doing kind of lately in terms of like putting back our leaders into the operating room and then having them really be present on the ground with their teammates. The idea came from a place where the reason hospitals reach out to us is having problem recruiting, retaining, and they have a culture issue. We've gone to places where I've seen locums getting paid like $400 an hour running the board, which is fine. I mean, they're competent, obviously, and most of them are honest and they just want to play by the rules. But if I'm relieving myself and I'm running the board, I'm relieving myself, I'm getting paid $400 an hour, I don't know how great it's going to be on the long term. And again, there are cultural issues. So the only way, I think, to build a really strong team with strong culture and identify those leaders on the ground is to be on the ground, is to go there, at least do around startups, transitions, get to meet the teams, talk to the surgeons, talk to the hospital administration, help your teammates. We're short-staffed. We can't find the locums, actually. And so we're clinicians. And then we can help reduce burnout on the ground. If we're asking our teams to work pre-call, post-call because we're short-staffed, why don't we go there, put on sun scrubs on, and go help? And then at the same time, meet the teams, listen to their concerns, come back with their feedbacks, and then see what we can do to help them. And also interface with surgeons who are directors and hospital C-suite.
Yeah.
I've heard it so many times. When you guys signed with us, you were sitting around the table at the table. We thought we were never going to see you again after you sign.
Yeah.
But here you go. You're in scrubs and you're working with us, and it's so great to see you here. So it goes a long way with our partners, hospital partners, goes a long way with our medical directors and chief CRNAs, the local leaders, to see us there, not in suits, but in scrubs.
Yeah.
And certainly it helps reduce the burnout from the team, the clinical burnout, by helping them get a firsthand idea of what's going on the ground.
Yeah. That's great. Well,
and I was just going to say, you think about finishing residency, you have joined a fraternity or a sorority of fellow clinicians, and you have that like shared bond of being clinicians in anesthesia or whatever your subspecialty is. And that is the common link amongst clinicians. And when you lose that, you lose oftentimes the shared, sort of bond that everybody sort of has that, hey, that guy knows what it's like to be in the salt mines because he does it day in and day out in really difficult situations. And it earns you a level of, a lot of credibility.
And again, when people tells you, well, you just build the pro forma and that's not going to work. It's unsafe to run 1 to 3, just medical direct 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. I'm like, let me show you how we're going to do it.
Yes.
So, because it is safe to run 1 to 3 and 1 to 4. It just depends on how you assign your cases and who makes the assignments.
Yeah.
And this is a NorthStar way of doing business. So we're going to level set the expectations here from day one. And that's why we need our leaders to do that on the ground.
Well, with that, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming back and saying yes to me.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Desiree.
Oh, I appreciate the conversation. You can always find more conversations like this, other conversations with NorthStar and all of our partners that help keep Top Med Talk free and open access to the entire world at topmedtalk.com. We're on your favorite social media platform or favorite podcatcher. If you find us there or on YouTube, anywhere else, give us a thumbs up, give us a star rating, let us know, give us some feedback about what you want to hear and how you liked our conversations here. We also wanted to say thank you to the American Society of Anesthesiologists. Without you, we couldn't have these great conversations like this. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Top Med Talk.
Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe, check us out on YouTube, and of course on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Also, it's important to remember that Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EPPOM, evidence-based perioperative medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that, and the way to do that is eppom.org. Check out our website and find out about some of the incredible conferences we're going to be arranging across the year. eppom.org.